Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Soul Tribe Podcast episodes. Today's episode is, and the only word I can just think of is amazing, because today's interview is with Roberta Grimes. Now, just a little overview if you don't know who she is. Roberta Grimes is an afterlife expert. She literally spent years and years researching, looking into, and figuring out what exactly happens when we die. So she investigated near-death experiences. She read a bunch of books of other individuals who wrote about it. She looked into a bunch of material of stories of individuals whom said to have, crossed over but came back. That's why it's a near-death experience. She explains that also. And she is known as an afterlife expert because of all the things she figured out and learned through these investigations, through these studies, and through just extensively looking into the issues. And Lorena and I really wanted to get her to interview in the podcast, just to pick her brain about, what she knows, what she learned. This is a world that all of us are eventually going to go to. So why not get somebody like Roberta to talk about it on the podcast? So it was really cool. And we reached out to her thinking that, she's going to be busy. She has a lot going on, and she has her own podcast, which you should definitely take a look at. We'll have all the links, all of Roberta's links in the bio. So we reached out to her and she said yes. And she's so amazing. And it was so fun to talk to her. She's such a positive, energy, and you talk to her and she's very outgoing. She's not afraid to share with you what she's discovered and what she believes in. So it was great that she gave us the opportunity to interview her. The interview is not totally complete because we had some technical internet issues. So a small portion of it wasn't properly recorded due to that internet issue, but we basically got the entire interview in. So we're thinking maybe in the future we want to re-interview her and keep picking her brain at all this stuff, because also part of it didn't record. But she just had so much information. It was really cool. And she herself has had the opportunity to speak to individuals who are in this field for years also. So she's picked many people's brains and she's figured things out. And now we got to pick her brain, and just an overall really enjoyable conversation. So I hope you guys enjoy the interview. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. And if you don't understand, know, or expect anything from death, hopefully this episode will help you feel better via the uncertainty of it all. Maybe now you can feel better about it and not be so scared of losing those around you, and obviously being scared maybe of you passing away yourself. So, and that's one of Roberta's bigger missions, to take away the fear of dying. And that's why the book that I read that she wrote is The Fun of Dying, because she wants everybody to know that it's not that scary and it's pretty great. So enjoy the interview and just absorb all the information and be happy. That's all. That's really all of it. We're here with Roberta Grimes, and we're really excited that you agreed to do this interview with us. And we love the things that you've done. We've watched your interviews, and I've read The Fun of Dying, and I know you also have The Fun of Staying in Touch and The Fun of Something Forever. What was it?
Growing Forever, which is what we're here to do.
Yes. So I read the first one and I loved it. But I kind of wanted to ask you about you first originally got into this, because it seems like the initial thing that brought you into this path was that experience you had when you were 8 years old. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I really never had a choice in the matter. This was what I had to do with my life.
Yeah. It was
You want
like
me to
part
tell?
of,
Should I tell you about it?
yeah, it would be
Okay.
great. Do you think it was maybe like part of your soul contract that
Of
that was
course.
supposed to happen to you?
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. In fact, I think I asked that it happen because I knew that otherwise I wouldn't, know what I wouldn't even have started on this path if that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
It was not where I was heading at all when I was 8. But what happened was it was April of 1955. So that tells you I'm in my latter 100s. But I woke up in the middle of the night and I knew there was no God. And I was a good little Christian child. That was pretty scary. So as I was being really scared by that thought, there was a bright flash of white light in the room. And a voice said, "You wouldn't know what it is to have me unless you knew what it is to be without me. I will never leave you again." Which was a great relief. I thought, oh, that's wonderful. If you forget there's a God, they remind you. And I went back to sleep. But that has remained vivid in my mind, for 60 plus years. I have never forgotten it. I never told anyone about it. Most people don't who have that kind of experience.
Yeah.
And I never asked a question, so I never got an answer. I ended up starting when I was about 12 to read the Bible cover to cover, trying to figure out what had happened to me. I ended up majoring in religion in college, figuring by the time you get to college, they will tell you without you having to ask what it is that happens if you forget there's a God. Again, I learned nothing. So I was pretty discouraged by the time I was a junior in college. And one day during the summer when I was turning 20, I came home from my summer job, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, bright daylight, sat down on my bed, and the same thing happened. There was a flash of white light that came over my right shoulder and flashed in the room. Beautiful music, celestial music. It sounded like millions of tiny bells. And the same young male voice said, "I will never leave you." And that's when I knew the first one that I still remembered vividly had not just been my imagination. And that's what started me on this path.
That's crazy.
It is.
I was telling my sister Lorena that I had a very similar experience, also around the age of 8, but I didn't get a response. I just had the emotional breakdown of thinking that I think my hamster had died, and I was like freaking out, thinking, "Oh my God, when you die, like you cease to exist, and you're just like gonna rot in like to earth, and that's the end of you." And I remember being in bed and crying myself to sleep, but I never got like that amazing like message that you had gotten. But that emotion that I had felt stuck with me forever. And I remember praying, which was kind of like new to me. I remember praying to God and saying, "Please show me that there's something more than just us living and then dying."
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah. So like that to me, like I can understand how you felt when you went through that, but that's amazing that you actually got a response, which I never did. I just like felt the doom of it all.
Well, the thing is, I didn't realize till much later what that was and why it had happened. Um, that was my primary guide. And he was basically getting my attention and giving me an impetus to start on a path. And the path was toward doing the things that I had agreed to do in this lifetime, to study and teach the genuine message of Jesus, to in order to help people get on a healthier emotional path, to study and understand what happens at and after death. A whole series of things like that were very important to him. I had promised to do, and this was how he got my attention.
That's amazing.
That is pretty crazy. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that was your guide that came to you.
Yes.
Does he, I suppose you said he was a he, does he still come to you and communicate with you?
Constantly.
Wow. That's
Now it's constant. He really prefers. They're people like the rest of us. Only now they're not in bodies, and generally they're much more advanced than we are. But they're basically people, and he much prefers to work internally. When it was my time to write Liberating Jesus, and I refused to write about Jesus, because we meet with our guides at night. We all do. We all have guides. We all meet with them at night while our bodies sleep, because our minds don't need to sleep. And that was when he was communicating with me, and it worked beautifully. And I sort of knew there was something going on, but it didn't matter to me who he was or what he was or whatever, or what anything was. I thought it was all, that I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing or wanted to do, and really it was all him. But he came to me through a medium when I refused to write Liberating Jesus, and basically guilted me into it. And after that, he communicated with me for about a year and a half through a medium, but he hated it. He wanted to go back to being internal, so he did. But now he basically, I'm like an automaton or an avatar. He runs me completely, and I'm happy about that. Because I would make terrible decisions. He makes good ones. So we let him run our little show here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. So is it kind of like, I'm imagining, because Lorraine and I are both Akashic Records readers. I'm imagining it's kind of like Lorraine and I, where we like, it comes into your like, your brain and it transforms into like information. Is it kind of like that, how you receive his messages or his like knowledge?
He usually puts ideas into my head that I'm not even thinking about the source of. For example, I've been doing for the past 2 years, I've been writing blog posts, which I don't even think about ahead of time. He comes up with the topic, and I look at it, I say, I have no idea what that's going to be about, but we do this every week. And so Monday and Tuesday, I'm thinking about them, but I have no idea. But by the time it's Wednesday, I'm starting to panic because I know I have to publish it on Saturday night. It goes live Sunday. And lo and behold, every Thursday morning, he starts actually helping me write it, and it's easy then.
That's amazing.
I'm doing it right now. It happens to be a Thursday we're doing this, and I've got it more than half written, and I didn't know when I got up this morning what it would be about, really. I knew the title. That was all I knew.
That's so cool. I love it.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
It's what he prefers to do, and he doesn't like to talk to me. When I get asked questions by people, and I'll sort of say, "What do you think?" and I'll get a blank. And they'll ask me what he thinks about something. I'll say, "What do you think?" Blank. And then in a few minutes, I'll clearly know what he's thinking. And it's usually not what I would even want or expect him to think. But I give people what I'm getting from him. It works well. I can't tell you how much easier life is when you don't have to be the one who makes the decisions.
That's actually so funny, because I was just telling my sister that I've been doing like opening my Akashic Records to write blog posts as well. And it just flows so well. And I feel like I'm getting messages like that way too, for people in a different way than if I was just doing a reading for them. It's amazing. And
We all have guides. Everyone needs to
yeah,
understand that. And as you work in a direction, especially a spiritual direction, you may attract more advanced guides, or you may keep the same guide, through your life. But the point is, they respond to what it is we feel called to do. But often they're the one who is doing the calling. But if you take up something new, you'll attract someone. As they say, you have guides for a reason or for a season. You'll attract, if you want to play the piano, you'll attract a piano guide who is helping you learn to play the piano. If you want to learn to write, I started writing. I didn't even know that was what I was doing, but I started writing a novel series in the 70s that I'm still working on now. And I didn't know until relatively recently that I have a whole separate guide with a team who is doing that, and they've been doing it all along. And I had no idea how it was going to develop, and lo and behold, here we are in the 7th novel. It's really fascinating how it works. But these people who are not in bodies love us so much and are so eager to help us learn as much as we can in our lives. And I can't begin to tell you what a wonderful thing it is when you understand just how much we are loved.
I think for me, the craziest part is they believe in your capabilities much more than you usually do.
Yes, it's so
Totally.
it's so wonderful. It's like I don't deserve the attention of these wonderful, beautiful people, but they love helping us. They do. This is what they advance themselves spiritually. And I think people need to remember that. They have told me quite emphatically that the more I do, the more it will advance them spiritually. It's a gift to give back to them, for us to work our very hardest at whatever feel we have been given to do.
Yeah.
I like that. I never looked at it that way. That it's kind of like a give and take, I guess. You help them,
Yeah.
they help you.
We all have our different roles to play, but the beautiful thing is, in guiding us through a successful lifetime of helping others spiritually, especially, they advance themselves hugely. It's wonderful. I feel I'm giving them a gift every day just by trying my very hardest to do what it is they seem to want me to do.
Yeah, I'm sure it does help them for sure.
Interesting. And so then you studied Christian theology.
Mm-hmm. I did.
And I mean, was it kind of like you had that experience when you were 8 years old and then you decided, I'm going to study this because I want to understand things more? Is that why you kind of went into that?
The reason really is that my my guide wanted me to have that background. I remember vividly standing when we were choosing majors, and I was standing in my advisor's office, and I was about to say I want to major in early Christian history. Then I stopped and thought, what am I thinking? You can't do anything with that. I don't want to. Immediately, I thought I had a clear thought in my mind. That is what I will major in, and I just put it in. It's what he wanted me to do. It was because of work we were going to do together later.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Do you think that's taken you on this path of researching death?
Yes. Yeah, that was part of it. In fact, kind of an important part. The problem we have really in life is fear. And the core fear is the fear of death. All other fears really come from that and are versions of the fear of death. And the reason we fear death is we don't know anything about it. Certainly Christianity teaches us to be terrified of death and going to hell and all the bad things. And every religion is like that. Religions are all fear-based, which is why they're all counterproductive in terms of our spiritual growth. But once you understand what the evidence tells us, and a lot of the evidence comes from people we used to think were dead, but it's amazingly consistent and detailed and thorough. And what's beautiful about it is it all supports exactly what Jesus taught. Jesus didn't give us Christianity. That came along from the Romans 300 years later. But what Jesus told us is all exactly true. And so that being the case, once we understand that it truly is no death, it's in fact, scientifically, it's impossible for our minds to die, we suddenly don't have any fears at all. They're all gone. Because if you can't die, nothing can harm you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I think death has always been something that's been a fear of mine. And as soon as we started kind of getting more serious with the Akashic Records, it's kind of shifted a bit. But when I watched your interview with George Noory and the way you were talking about death and how we don't die and how actually we've come here to the earth as spiritual beings to learn lessons, right?
That's right.
It's crazy, and it made me shift my perception even more, because that's what most people fear: death, dying. I fear more people around me dying, but death is like it's a big fear for a lot of people. So
It
maybe
is.
you
It's the
can
core fear. It's
explain
the
it.
base fear. Well, the thing about it is that it is such a core fear, the fear of extinction, the fear of death, the fear of loss, that it governs everything we think, say, and do. Everything. Until we suddenly come to the understanding that it's impossible to die. I'm not afraid of God because I know God loves me much more than I could possibly love myself, and much more than I can imagine. You're not afraid of anything then. It's so empowering not to be afraid. And because consciousness is the only thing that exists, what we experience as human consciousness in a dim way, that's the core energy that manifests this universe, and it manifests it continuously. It isn't something that started in a big bang and now it's just winding on. No, it's it's like, if you were to think of your address, the last line of the address would be the mind of God. That's where we always are, where we live and move and have our being. And that being the case, once you understand that that's true and that you cannot die, I can't tell you what a difference it makes. Consciousness exists in a range of vibrations. It's energy, and all energy vibrates. The lowest is fear, and the highest is love. So we come here from an area with an atmosphere of perfect love. I mean, they talk about near-death experiences, which are beautiful, but they have nothing to do with death, of course. But nevertheless, they are experiences in the astral, and Even the love level in the astral is so high. People are transformed by near-death experiences. Well, imagine what it's like when you're back, truly back with God. So here we are here, and we're terrified, and it makes our vibration so much lower that we cannot grow spiritually while we're afraid of death. It's not possible. So that's why my guide Thomas had me learn how to teach people that death is an illusion. It doesn't happen. And I answer questions every day. I get a lot of questions just through my website from people who are afraid, but they have a gotcha question for me. Yes, but. And there's always an answer. There's never been a question I couldn't answer at this point, because I've been doing this for 50 years. Sooner or later, the light dawns even on the thickest head. So I get it all. I get it all now. Yeah, but that's why I learned. That's why he had me learn, so that I could then teach people not to be afraid, because only then can we begin to grow spiritually.
Yeah. I actually, I don't know why Lorena's so afraid of dying, because I have never been, but also because we grew up with, like, our mom like does Reiki, and she's very bit into the spiritual stuff. So we kind of grew up with that. And also originally from South America, where like it's normal to believe in more. But my mom always said that hell doesn't exist, that hell is us incarnated here in this world, and that when we die, we're going to be more alive than when we're in these bodies. That was kind of how we were brought up with Lorena. So I always said that I'm not afraid of dying. I'm just afraid of suffering, missing people that died before me. So I always say, I want to be the selfish one that goes first.
Yes. Yeah. Who was it? I think it was Groucho Marx who said, I don't mind dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens.
Yeah.
I always think that's very true. None of us wants to go through the process, but it's really wonderful once you're through it. Let me tell you, it's wonderful.
You mentioned near-death experiences, and I remember in one of the interviews as well, I don't remember who it was. I think, Lucia, you remember the name of the guy.
Proof of Heaven.
Evan Alexander.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So he talks about having passed on to like the other realm or something, and how that doesn't actually happen. You don't actually die. Like,
no, you don't die. I had Raymond Moody on my own podcast, Seek Reality,
cool.
and interviewed him. And I've actually met him, and he's a lovely person. But I was very blunt about it. I said, the evidence is that near-death experiences are not really death. He said, of course they're not death. That's why I call them near-death. They're not death.
Yeah, totally.
And so I said, from the mouth of the source comes the fact that they're not death. Many people think they have died because they're in the astral, which is they're out of their bodies quite legitimately, usually because the body is briefly unable to sustain you in it. So you're out of it. And they're being loved and protected by their own guides. They're being given very idiosyncratic experiences, usually pulled from their own minds. There's a young boy who had I can't remember what it was called now, so long ago. But anyway, he was sure he had been to heaven, and he saw the battle between good and evil, and he saw all these things that are pulled from the Bible, none of which are, have happened remotely. And I just know that the guides there had so much fun doing that for that little boy, because they don't want to mess up our beliefs. They don't want to trouble us in any way if we're coming back. So his father was a minister. They gave that kid a wonderful set of experiences that were not real. Not one of
so
them
they're like giving them the NDEs that are relative to their beliefs, so that they can come back and continue to be the same person in a way.
Right. That's right.
Oh, I hadn't picked up on that. Okay, I see now. I see. Okay.
You can start with a near-death experience and die. In a longer near-death experience, often the experiencer will come to a place where they're told, you are now at the border. If you continue to go forward, you will die. You will not be able to go back. You have not completed your life plan. We suggest you go back, but it is your choice. Mm-hmm. And if they go forward, they'll never, that's it. The silver cord breaks and they're dead. When they turn around and come back, they have avoided dying, but they have never been dead. There is no such thing as dying and coming back. And the dead confirm this. I call them the people we used to think were dead, because of course they're not dead at all. But they have told us it's a one-way trip always. Death is a one-way trip.
So saying that you'll pass, continuing beyond that point is the silver cord breaking. I was going to ask you about that. And actually, in Spanish, they call it the umbilical cord. That silver cord, yeah.
Yep.
But so the breaking of the cord is basically the confirmation, like the death of the body and the moving on of the soul.
That's the actual death of the body. The only thing that keeps your body alive is the being that is in that body, namely you. Your mind, but it's much more complicated than your mind. We can talk about that too. But the point is, once that cord dies, the body cannot be reanimated. So you will not be able to come back. Now you can lurk here as a disembodied being, but you cannot go back into the body. It's dead.
At one point in the book, you talked about how like souls that might be stuck here because whatever, maybe they can't forgive themselves for something.
Yes.
They can go into the body of a fetus, like a pregnant woman passes by, they can go into the body of that baby, right?
That's even Ian Stevenson's work. Ian Stevenson was a researcher at the University of Virginia who did an extraordinary body of work. I recommend his work highly. And it's sort of technical and dry. It's scientific, but there are people who in countries where the belief system includes reincarnation, there are some children who vividly recall a recent previous life that ended violently. Mm-hmm. And he 20 cases suggestive of reincarnation, I think is what it's called. That was his breakthrough book. He researched 20 of these cases and found what they called the previous personality. And they brought the child there, and the child knew everybody, knew their names, was able to go into the bedroom and show where the gold was buried, all these things. Oh my God. Just unbelievable. What had happened, this is not that we do reincarnate repeatedly, but that's not how it normally happens. But in each of these cases, you can see, and often the child would even have scars from whatever caused the death, like someone who was killed with a shotgun blast, had these freckles all over his chest where the shotgun had gotten him. But what happens is these people died unexpectedly, died at a time which was not planned, because virtually all of us die only at planned exit points, which we have planned into our life plan. And we hit the exit point, our higher consciousness says, okay, we've done the best we can with this lifetime. And we out because it's much more fun to be there than here. But just unexpectedly, they were killed, they were murdered, or they died in a horrible accident, but usually it's murder. And the person whose body it was, an adult, was thrown out of the body. And because, of course, he can't die, some of them talked about what they did. They lurked in a tree nearby. One said that he lurked in a tree, he didn't know what to do or where to go, and he saw a woman passing below him he knew had a fetus, was pregnant, and she looked like someone he would like for a mother, so he decided to go into that fetus, and he did, and then he was born from that woman.
But so that body wasn't already confirmed for another soul? Like that's the first thing I thought when I read that.
I think that probably it was. And I'm not sure what happens to that other being. It may be that the being is somehow also involved in that lifetime. I just don't know. No one has really done any research on this, but it would be interesting to know what happens to the fetus, because we know that fetuses are assigned not at conception, but usually before conception.
Yeah. If you read like Michael Newton's books, they say that usually the soul joins the baby or the fetus's brain 3 months into the pregnancy.
Yeah, but the choice is made. I mean, there's no place you can possibly be more boring than in a 1 month, 2 month, even 3 month fetus. You don't want to. You're not going to hang around there all that time. So what they do is they sort of latch on to the fetus. Usually this assignment is, there are many more people who want to incarnate than there are bodies for them to incarnate in, especially good ones, suitable ones. Mm-hmm. So whoever is assigned to that body latches onto it in important ways and begins to prepare for that lifetime. But they typically enter sometime after the first trimester. Some of them will just enter the body relatively early just to get acclimated to being in a body again.
And to connecting with the mother, right?
Yes, yeah. They do want to try to bond with the mother. But it's we tend to think of this as a mechanical process. It's extremely individual. Just as your own life is individual. Your preferences, we don't really appreciate how much we are loved and respected, but our wishes are very, very important. Our guides take care of us so carefully. So if people don't want to go in until just before birth, they don't. But people want to go in fairly early, they do. It's really up to them.
Yeah. So you talked about exit points, and I remember you saying that you could have, usually there's up to three planned exit points, which is like one very early on, one like in the middle of your life, and then one towards like 80. So it's like 45 or something, or 50, 80, and then around 20, right?
Well, but it's very variable again, because if you plan your life around dying, young for important reasons. One book I recommend to everybody to read is called Flying High in Spirit, a young snowboarder's account of his ride through heaven. Mikey Morgan is a genuine sixth level being who recently incarnated. I know of no other situation like this. He was last on Earth in the 1600s, at which point he ceased incarnating. And by now, he's very developed spiritually. He was very worried. A lot of them are worried about what's going on the Earth. So Mikey decided that in order to be able to communicate to us at this, time of very crucial time in Earth's history, he needed to know what it's like to be, in a body again, and he needed to know how to talk to people in the 21st century. So he took a 20-year lifetime. Mm-hmm. He had two planned exit points. The first one was at 12. He thought that that's the one he would take, but he was having so much fun. Among other things, he was snowboarding in Colorado. He was having so much fun that he just didn't leave, and then he died in an accident. He was the only person in that accident who had any injuries, and he was immediately dead because he had to go home. That was his last exit point, and he had work to do, and he's been doing his work ever since.
So what was he worried about that he felt like he needed to communicate?
Think about how people talked in the 1600s.
Yeah. Very different.
Right. And how they lived. He had no familiarity with life now, and he had been out of a body for so long. And life there is so very different. They very quickly lose touch of what life is like here. They communicate only in boluses of thought. They don't think words. They think thoughts and send them to someone else, and that person picks them up, which my guide tells me is much more efficient than talking, which is surprising because he was a wordsmith in his last lifetime, but that's all right. It's different there. It's all happy there. There's no darkness. They never sleep. They have so many fun things to do. It's just very, very different. And he wanted to be able to talk to us, not as some weird kooky person who hadn't been alive for 1 million years here and had only been there. He wanted to talk like a young kid. He wanted to sound good, hip, cool. And so his book is wonderful when you understand how it was written and who was writing it. It is, and I have to say, having done all of the studying I've done, and I've been doing this studying for close to 50 years, he knows much more than I do. His mother, through whom he communicates, knows nothing and has never studied anything. Mikey knows more than I do by quite a bit. In fact, he's the only person now who knows so much more than I do that I actually consult him on things.
That's incredible.
So that reminds me, like I had a reading once with a lady, and they had communicated to her that she was actually, her normal job when she wasn't incarnated was a master, but that she was actually sent to come back to gather information because things had changed so much and things were so different that they needed kind of like one of the masters to go back, collect information about how humans currently think and that kind of like work and figure things out, and then bring it back to the bunch of masters where they were all going to kind of like digest the information and from there better assist us from up there.
Yes, that's the kind of thing that happens all the time.
Yeah, so that kind of reminds me of that. It's interesting. Yeah.
I have a question, because you mentioned before that there are more souls to reincarnate onto this, I guess, earth than there are bodies, right?
Right.
So is it like a privilege to come here and learn these lessons here, or are there other places? Obviously, I believe that the universe is very vast and there are other places and astral travel and all that and parallel lives and all that. But what is your take on that?
What we're told is that the universe teems with intelligent life. Not all of it is even recognizable to us as intelligent life. There's a planet that's largely pond scum. The pond scum is intelligent. There's a planet, which I think is hysterical, that where the life is silica based, so it's all rocks. And the rocks are alive. They just move very slowly. So if we go there as part of our traveling, after we first get back, we do a lot of traveling. If we go there, we think that there's nothing there. But they're all living their happy, normal life. They just are living at a different pace than ours. So I talked about this weird planet with Bernardo Kastrup, I think, is going to get the Nobel Prize as the father of a consciousness theory of everything. He's a wonderful young Dutch physicist. And I told him about this once. I said, can you imagine such a thing? He said, interesting. You know how scientists talk. He said, silica is also, just like carbon, could be a basis for life. And I thought, oh my goodness, my mind is officially blown.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, there's so many aspects of incarnating that we don't understand because we can only understand the human in itself.
Yes, typically we have one planet we mostly incarnate on, but we do take incarnations on other planets. So, if you have a friend who seems like he's totally from another planet, he may well be. This may be his one time to try a life on Earth. We are told that in the entire reality, in every universe, the hardest place for people to come, but the place where the most advancement is possible in one lifetime, is this one. This is considered to be a very, very tough place. And you can see why. I mean, people come from where everything is light, love, happiness, terrific. And then you end up here where people are, dying of drug overdoses and murder and all of this stuff, which is unthinkable in most of reality. And so they tell us that the fact that our consciousness vibration, because of all the wars, I think partly in the last century, has gone so low that we really can't raise it anymore on our own, no matter what we do. They're having to help us. They're worried because apparently there was once a toughest planet of all, and they literally destroyed the planet, the people who are on it. So they don't want us to destroy this one. That's why we have not been allowed to have another nuclear war. The fact that we had a nuclear war, for just briefly at the end of the Second World War, we actually used nuclear weapons in warfare. That scared them so much that they have assured us we will not be allowed to use nuclear weapons again. And when you think about it, we haven't, have we? Even though we've had so many of them. In fact, there are tales of missile tests and things where a missile came out of nowhere. No one knew whose it was or what it was, and took out the missile being tested. We were getting too close to being able to use a nuclear weapon. So I am pretty confident we won't have a nuclear war. Instead, we are going to raise the consciousness vibration of the planet. It's just that we have to have a lot of help to do that.
Yeah,
that's so
true. What is your take on like all these like viruses and these like strong, like mutations of what is like a basic flu, and it's just like able to kill a lot of people now? Do you think that that's part of controlling the human population, or is it something from our low vibrational energy?
I think it's hard to know. And, sometimes it doesn't matter what it is, because we can't see ahead. We're the people who are planning all of this, the strategists are. There is no such thing as time. So they know, it's like 9-dimensional chess. They can plan things much better than we can because they know much more about the future and the alternatives and what's going to happen. So I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling that it's not a big deal. They're worried about it, but very few people die of these diseases. A truly lethal disease that many people died of, I think we could talk about that. But I think it's just a variation on, like polio. Everyone thought that was the end of the world. And the flu that happened during the First World War, rather, it took out mostly young people. That was a terrible thing, but still a very small percentage of the people who caught that flu died.
I wonder sometimes if it was planned, if that person was supposed to go and that's just the way they went. That's what I think sometimes.
Yes, I think that's probably true, but it's hard to know. It's possible to die in a truly accidental death. Most accidental deaths are planned exit points. there's no way to know for certain, but very often one way you can tell is that people whose higher consciousness have chosen an exit point will spend the last year or so wrapping things up in their lives. They'll reach out to people they haven't talked to in a long time. The husband will give the wife all the passwords, little things like that. And then they're ready to go, and then they'll leave, even though sometimes they aren't even sick at the time. They'll have a sudden event of some sort and die.
I've talked about that with my partner before. My partner doesn't believe in anything. He thinks that you're a piece of flesh, and then like when you die, that's it. And that's his belief. And I've told him stories of like people like, no, this person said this before. It was literally the day before. No, coincidence. So he always brings it down to coincidence. So it's like almost impossible to get him to see the other perspective of like, yes, this thing does exist.
Like, what would you say to someone that thinks that way or believes that?
Nothing. There's nothing you could say to them that is going to make a difference. All they need to know is that you're available to talk about it. You have knowledge, and you're available to talk about it when they're ready. Sometimes it takes a long time for them to be ready. Sometimes they have to be very sick or have to lose someone very close to them. I hear from people every day who will admit that they never thought about death much before, but this or that happened. Often, believe it or not, it's a pet. There's a blog post on my website that's several years old now, and for some reason, Google picked it up, and now there's hundreds and hundreds of comments there. And I get emails from people all the time who just had Fido die, because the fact is wonderful for pets. Every pet you ever have loved is waiting for you there, and my horse is waiting. I mean, the news is so good, but it's actually not nearly as good as the truth is. It's even more wonderful than anything we can imagine.
Where is it that we go? Like, what is this place? What does it look like? What is, like, where is it? You know what I mean?
It's right exactly where you are right now.
Is this okay?
The easiest way to envision it is think about this. In the room where you are now are hundreds of television channels, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have a TV, you put it on the table, turn it on, and you could tune it to one of those channels and pick up a picture. And, right now, your mind, which is eternal and which is nowhere near your actual body, is picking up the signal of the body that you think you're in and this level of reality. And that's why you think you're here, but you're not. Your mind is far away. Although there's no distance, so therefore it's not really far away, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So all that happens when you die is that your mind, that TV set, tunes to a slightly higher channel in the same place, and it picks up a whole new solid reality right in the same place.
Okay. That makes sense. It's the same like radio waves, right?
Yeah, it's all energy. There's no such thing as solid matter. Even scientists are starting to understand that that's true.
That's so, I've read things about that as well.
So like part of the process of death, they'll start getting messages or get visitors that have already passed away. That's one of the things. Uh-huh. But like what I wanted to know about was there's like this moment of like the burst of energy or like a moment of like complete health.
Yeah.
Right before. Why is that? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, of course there is. It's called terminal lucidity. It's especially noticeable in people who have completely fried brains. The brain is, it's Alzheimer's, severe stroke, whatever it is. It's impossible for that brain to have any awareness at all. And the person has been a vegetable maybe for years. And within a few hours before death actually occurs, and this happens not infrequently, this person who was a vegetable is suddenly awake, aware, talking normally with the people around the bed. They sometimes even sit up and talk. And these are people who've never moved voluntarily for a long time. And this can go on for up to an hour or two, and then the person will die. What happened? Why did that happen? It's pretty simple, really. The person that you are, think of yourself as Matryoshka dolls, nested Russian dolls. Mm-hmm. And most of they're all energy bodies. And I'm not sure how many there are. I've heard estimates. But they're all nested inside this physical body of yours. Now, as you are coming to your natural death, they start to separate from the physical body, and the aura, what we think of as the aura, is also going to stay behind. I'm pretty certain. They start to separate, and people who are awake at the time can actually feel it happening. It's like unvelcroing from the inside, starting in the fingers and toes, moving up to the center of the body, and it starts to happen in the brain as well. So when your eternal true energy body separates enough from the dead brain that's still in the head that you've been using, except it doesn't work anymore, when your real mind separates enough, suddenly you're not impaired at all. That's what it is. It's part of the process of separating your energy bodies from the body that's going to die.
Do you believe that they realize that that's happening, or they're just kind of, it's like a subconscious thing that's going on?
We haven't interviewed many people who are truly in the death process, because it's a sacred time. You don't want to interfere with that. But what seems to be the case is that they are already, usually they're already in communication. You mentioned the deathbed visitors. The reason for that is interesting too, because we are as clueless when we first get out of our bodies as we were when we first exited our mother's bodies. We have no idea what's going on. And so our people we trust and love and will follow have come to be at the bedside, and they talk to us and stuff as we're getting ready to actually leave, so that we will immediately follow them out. Because the risk is that if we start to try to comfort the people around the bed, we'll lower our vibration, no longer be able to even find a way out, and then we'll be earthbound for a time. We don't want that. By the way, Mikey says like 20% of people are routinely earthbound for at least for a while after their death, which scares the dickens out of me. Wow. I'm not afraid of that.
That's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot. I'm not sure he's right, but he's usually right, so he probably is. So, but part of the problem is ignorance. Once we explain to people what the right way is to die, and enough people know it, far fewer people will get stuck that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
We have this like joke with a good friend of mine. He's like always seen kind of people that haven't passed over that are stuck here. And so we have this joke that whoever goes first is going to come back and haunt the other person and kind of be like, dude, you have no idea what's going on over here, and like bother each other. So we're waiting to see who goes first, and we'll just go and like haunt the other person.
What's beautiful is that the people who actually, die are so happy, so thrilled. It's so wonderful. It's so amazing there that whatever pact they made like that, they usually don't even remember it afterwards. Curious fact, people who, you and I have when I'm terminal, I'm about to leave, you give me a key word. I want you to say dressing table. When you say dressing table through a medium, I'll know you're still alive. Whatever that word is, it could be a one-syllable word, it could be nothing. Whatever that word is, they never remember it. And this has been true for, I've never heard of anyone who actually remembered the word. And the explanation seems to be a simple one. When we are here, we are living with a very small percentage, 20-30% maybe, of our vast eternal mind. It's like you strip down to go to the gym. We strip down to just the parts of our eternal mind that we need to be here. And one of the first things that happens when we die is we get back into our mind, and we suddenly know everything. We're brilliant and it's wonderful. And then that's great. And that's how we live, which is why it's so easy. Prodigies, piano prodigies and violin prodigies, they learned to play from Mozart or Beethoven, and they could play like a son of a gun there because their mind learns so quickly. And if they were able to bring back those talents, and they can choose to do that, they can play, they're a prodigy. But the problem is we have that wonderful mind when we're there. But someone, one of the great communicators communicated through his wife, and he said, I know the word, but then I have to get down to this much smaller version of my mind in order to come as low as I come to be able to communicate with you, low vibration. And for some reason, I never can remember it when I'm in this limited part of my mind, which makes perfect sense because it didn't make sense to me before, but it does now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. I think something that just kind of popped into my brain, because you're talking about the mind and all that, manifesting. Do you believe that we can manifest anything we want in this life? Because obviously we're souls, and we're obviously in this life we're not living to our full potential. But do you believe that that's something that we can actually do, like manifest things that we desire in this life?
Jesus told us that if you have as much as much faith as a grain of mustard seed, which is the tiniest seed he knew, and faith is just belief. If you have as much faith as that, you can tell a mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and that mountain will obey you. So Jesus told us, sure, anything you want to do with your mind, you can do. But the trick is you have to believe you can do it. And nobody believes that mountain is really going to move.
Mm-hmm. I struggle with the whole idea of manifesting because as a reader, I've seen myself say to individuals some karmic aspects of what they came here to learn, and sometimes it's give value to money, or sometimes it's struggle with this one thing in your life for this short amount of time so that you learn this one lesson. So I feel like sometimes we're not supposed to manifest things that we want because we're supposed to learn from not having that so that we can have it maybe after.
Well, or we're maybe meant to learn how to have the kind of faith that will allow you to manifest that. I don't mean faith in some religion. Mm-hmm. There is no good religion on earth. They're all man-made. They are not of God. That's just a fact. And it especially includes Christianity. But Jesus is God on earth. It's just that the religions went off in a whole other direction, including Christianity. So part of what I'm supposed to do really is help people to understand Jesus is real, but Christianity is not. And so to answer your question, we're not meant to have lack. We're not meant to suffer. We're not meant to have any negativity in our lives at all. We're meant to have abundance and beauty and truth and strength. But it's up to us to grow into that. And so it's up to us to manifest those things, and we can do them. But if we're manifesting them just because of our own egos, the ego is the big negative. If your ego is what's driving you, you'll never be able to get anywhere. The A Course in Miracles, which by the way Jesus did channel, is a lot of it is about how to vanquish the ego, and that's very, very important. I talk about that too.
Oh my gosh, I have that book, and I need to start it. I want to start all the lessons. I've heard it's amazing.
It is, and it's what's great about it is that it really it's the same things he taught us in simple form, only taught in a very advanced way.
Okay, I wanted to talk about if we have departed loved ones. I mean, we can receive signs from them.
Yes.
What are like the typical signs when you did research? What are the typical signs that you found were like the most common or the normal thing to receive?
This is another thing that's very personal. If there's something significant to you, your loved one will try to give it to you. One of the things they will do, for example, is play the song you dance to. A loving spouse would play the song you dance to at your wedding. You'll get into an elevator. There'll be music, and suddenly that song will be playing. Or you walk into a store and the music, suddenly that song will be playing. They easily influence the music. They'll influence animals and insects. The way they do it is interesting too. They will approach the insect or insects and say something like, I want to take over your mind. Will you allow it? And the insects always do, and the birds and animals always do. We're told because it's very pleasurable for them to have their mind influenced by a human being, even though not in body. And so you'll see a squirrel walk right up to you, and where you're sitting, and look up to you and maybe sit up and look you in the eye. That is a squirrel being influenced by someone you love. That's a sign. Or one woman, just after I think her grandfather had died, his favorite bird was a cardinal, and so I remember the story. And he would often have cardinals come and sit outside her kitchen window. Then her son died, and that the next morning, the cardinal was there with a blue jay beside him. The son had sent the blue jay. That kind of thing. They're subtle, and they're usually they're natural items. or animals or whatever. They're not, there's no skywriter in the sky. They're subtle. Another thing they'll often do is produce feathers or small objects. This is common stuff. It happens all the time.
And like, so this might be a little bit of a weird question, but let's say that I don't know, let's say I'm studying philosophy and there's this like one, person that I'm more interested in their work. Is it possible to maybe somehow have a connection with their work so strongly that they can somehow connect? They've passed over, right? Somehow connect or send me messages or kind of help me connect with their work more? Or do they just kind of respect that you actually have no relationship with them at all?
The evidence is that the kind of relationship is a love relationship. It's not a you're working on the same thing relationship. Our priorities are very different. My guide and I have had 17 lifetimes together. And so oddly, I'm always a male. We're sort of male comrades. This is a very unusual lifetime for me to be female. But he wanted to accomplish certain things in this lifetime, and I said, "Send me in. I'll do it." And that's why we're doing this now. It has frustrated him during the period we were talking through a medium. I think one of the reasons he didn't like doing that was that I had no memory of any of the stuff that he wanted to talk to me about. I don't remember any of our lifetimes together or anything we've done. And he would try to talk to me about it and what he had done, and I had no clue. And it frustrated him very much. He's much happier to be working now this way.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense because you're incarnated. You're not going to remember everything, what you really are. That's part of the point of being here, right?
But he calls it the forgetful, because of course he's not using words as well anymore. But there's a distinct amnesia which we agree to before we come in to this lifetime. Because if you remembered all your lifetimes now, you wouldn't concentrate on this one.
Yeah,
totally. But it's frustrating to him because he wishes I remembered more things. He's got to sort of lead me through a lot more things than he wishes he could.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, so the messages or the signs that I would receive would be with somebody that I had some sort of a strong connection with personally in either this life or a previous life.
Usually everything you get is people in this lifetime. Mm-hmm. The people who are not in this lifetime and are in other lifetimes, you will reconnect with once you go home.
Do you believe that all these souls have already like a defined job on the other side?
No,
or like a task?
You choose to do tasks, but you're called to do them, or you and friends do them. But there's all the regimentation we have here doesn't exist there. If you don't want to do something, you don't do something. The thing is, your priorities are very different there because you understand that our whole purpose is to grow spiritually. And someone like Mikey Morgan, who's very advanced. He's almost at the level of the Godhead. And you want to do that too because it's more fun. There's more to do. It's more exciting. It's just more fun. So that's why we come back for another incarnation. Even though when we leave, we swear we'll never come back. We do come back because what we want to do is to grow. Yeah. We crave that when we're there, like you've never craved anything.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before. That you hope this one's the last one.
Yes. Well, actually, Thomas tells me that I have grown enough in this one that it is my last one. But I will come back one more time to teach, and I say in your dreams. But apparently I will. I have no idea. I try to take one lifetime at a time.
Yeah, that's smart. Lorena, do you have like any questions you would like to add?
You kind of went through most of everything that I wanted to ask her. It's really fascinating the point of view and everything, and I do believe in everything you're saying. So I don't know. It's helped me see death in a different way. So I want to thank you for that. I think that's really cool.
Well, I'm glad. Any other questions, you can always contact me through my website, which there's a block there which says contact Roberta or ask Roberta a question or something, and I always answer those emails.
I think the part I love the most about the book, The Fun of Dying, is that I'm a big bookworm. Like, I love to read, and you literally listed all the books that you use to research. So I'm literally one by one going to be like just getting those books and reading them up.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. And a number of them are, out of copyright, so that you can get them on the internet. And I recommend people do that. I mean, free is a very excellent price.
Mm-hmm.
But I deliberately gave you that there are 70 some odd books now in the most recent bibliography. And whatever you're curious about, there are books about it. So if you just go to the heading and look among what's there, I've read all of them. So I can tell you personally that they are true and they're wonderful. There are wonderful books on these topics.
Yeah, definitely gonna look into them. Can you let our listeners know where they can reach you, whatever links or websites that you want to share?
Just go to robertagrimes.com or go to webtalkradio.net and look for Seek Reality. Seek Reality is my 7-year-old podcast, and it's available very freely in a lot of places right now. We started small, but we ended up big. And the thing about Seek Reality is that what we're trying together to do is really seek reality, because the religions don't tell us anything really that's true. And science is unfortunately now just a belief system. For the past 100 years, it's been the belief system, the dogma of materialism has governed it. And that being the case, they can't really tell you much either. So it's up to you and me to put it together. And with the help of those books, and with the help of our working together to understand what's really going on, we have been able to put a great deal together. Whenever I meet someone else who's done this work, we complete each other's sentences, which by itself tells you something wonderful.
I love it.
Yeah.
What amazing.
So 7 years with a podcast, that's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work too, but I do it for you. So I'm happy to do it. I hear from so many people who tell me that it helped and made a difference for them. You hear from one person and you say, now I know why I was born.
Yep.
And when I'm hearing from people every day, now, I mean, I can't tell you, it's the most joy there is helping people this way. But it is possible, everyone listening, it is possible to vanquish all your fear of death, and it is possible to come to a place where all of this makes sense, and you sort of slap your forehead and say, I knew it all along, I just forgot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time to, be on our podcast and letting us interview you. And sorry for all the technical issues.
If you have a problem, just we'll do this again. I'm happy to do it.
I'll definitely let you know if we have any issues. But thank you so much, Roberta. It's a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you so much for sharing all this information with all of our listeners.
Yeah, you're amazing.
Help for sure.
I think you two are as well, and I wish you very good luck with what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Big hugs.
Bye.
Big hugs. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode. We hope you enjoyed this interview with Roberta Grimes. We want to thank Roberta for taking the time to come on here and talk to everybody, because it was really a pleasure to listen to her point of view, her investigation, her hard work, all kind of come to life with her books and everything, and see her point of view and kind of see it in a different way from myself, at least. I guess I had a very different view of death and how that works and how we navigate around that as souls and humans, how we see it too, right? I also want to apologize for all the technical issues we had during this recording. It was a bit tricky, and I think a lot of the questions that we asked her, which she had great responses to, didn't get on to this podcast episode. So I do believe that we will have her on again, hopefully, if she agrees to it. In any case, please be sure to follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle's @soul_tribe_podcast. We're also on Facebook and YouTube, so be sure to go on there and follow us. And also, if you feel called to leave a rating and review on iTunes, we would greatly appreciate it and would really help our podcast out a lot. And we hope you all have a great week. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.